Well, let's get some reaction to the breaking news tonight that the Prime Minister, Tony Abbott, will intervene in plans to segregate people who are wearing facial coverings at Parliament House. The Race Discrimination Commissioner, Soutphommasane, joins us now on the phone. Mr. Soutphommasane, thank you so much for your time late in your evening. Now, your reaction to the news tonight that the PM is going to intervene?
It's a welcome development. I saw no good reason to be putting Muslim women in burka or niqab in a designated glassed area. Every Australian is entitled to fair treatment. No one should be treated as a second-class citizen, not least in their own parliament.
Where do you think the pressure would have come from for the PM to make this intervention?
There was widespread community concern expressed this afternoon once it became clear that there was an interim decision made by the presiding officers in Parliament. People were genuinely worried that this was going to set a dangerous precedent. Once you set off a particular part of public space and say that that is where people of a certain background should sit, it can only be a matter of time before others start suggesting that perhaps we should consider parts of our buses or trains, our cafes or restaurants to be set aside for people of a certain background as well, and that would be a very dangerous development indeed.
Even if the Speaker, Bronwyn Bishop, does drop the plan to change and force people to sit in those public galleries of Parliament House, has there been already damage done to that area of the community and the sense that there was a plan in place to segregate them?
That's certainly a concern, because you may now have people who believe it is respectable to be calling for a more widespread ban of religious items of clothing. It gives a certain credibility to those who believe that there is indeed a security threat with items of clothing such as the niqab or burqa. But I've yet to see any expert opinion or analysis which says that the burqa represents an additional or special security threat.
Mr. Soutphommasane, how do you feel in all the areas that you go around in your day and your job, all the areas that you speak to and the people you speak to, what is the presiding feeling amongst the community, amongst your contacts about what is happening in the country at the moment in terms of the targeting of certain groups of people in terms of a wider context of a story that's going on in the world?
National security and terror issues cannot be separated from cultural harmony and social cohesion. I have heard a lot of anxiety from Muslim community members who believe that they are being unfairly targeted and being subject to a rising number of threats and incidents of intimidation. We saw earlier this week Victorian police arresting a woman who had punched or bashed a Muslim woman in the head on a train and threw her out of moving carriage. We've seen mosques across the country being defaced with anti-Islamic slogans. We saw last week a man wielding a knife walking into an Islamic college in southwest Sydney, threatening staff and students. And this sort of criminal conduct is simply not acceptable. Muslim Australians are entitled to a fair go and to an assurance that they can live their lives safely, as everyone should be. And we should not be judging a community based on the actions of a fanatical few, because the vast, overwhelming majority of Muslim Australians are good, loyal and law-abiding Australian citizens.
How does the government, though, find a balance between what are genuine security issues and obviously targeting groups of people maybe in an area that's not needed? How do they find that balance, and what's the right balance in your view?
The best response is to be calm and to be united. That's the best way of countering terrorism. The last thing you want to do is to allow fear, hate and suspicion to prevail. That is tantamount to surrendering to extremists and to the threat of terror. We have to combat and meet this issue as an absolutely united community, and our political leaders and elected representatives have a special responsibility to remain calm and to ensure that we don't throw social cohesion by the wayside.
Race Discrimination Commissioner Soutphommasane joining us there on the phone. Thanks so much for your time this evening.
Thanks, Kumi. Good evening.